Thanks, Michael. So welcome, everybody, to Words and Art at the CAM. My name is Mary Wemple. Again, I'm the creator and coordinator of the series. Thank you, everyone, for coming here tonight. A special thank you to everyone at the CAM, Felice Cleveland, and Michael Simmons, who helped with all the setup and organizing. And also a big thank you to Chuck Wemple, who was the guest judge on this one. So all the works were inspired by Walls Turn Sideways, the artist Confront the Justice System. So are you ready to get started? Yes. Are you ready? Yes. Yes? All your cell phones are turned off? Yes. Please? Okay, everyone welcome our first reader, Saba Hussein.
Hello. The poem is called Exits. Outside, the air is cold like green apples. False foliage bottles a vinegary brown. How lucky to find a parking spot in the narrow street behind the museum. Some of us, the coyotes got. One girl's nails popped off. Between the stones and branches, it's totally dark. You see bones, you see clothes. Sometimes the moonshine lets you see the path. Ne me quitte pas. I will give you pearls of rain. I will dig up the earth even in death, to cover your body with gold and with light, to forget those hours which sometimes killed. October 20th, 2018. The death of an inmate killed in a fight is announced with a list of nefarious crimes from 20 years ago. The farm grows cotton and corn and sugarcane. There was a man named Glenn who was on the run. There was a man named Glenn who was on the run. There was an incarcerated man, Titus Kaffar. There were 99 of them all Titus Kaffars. I hurry across the street to my car, roll the windows all the way down, pull away from the museum. I have no last word. I get home when I get there. Tell Mama and the kids, tell Mama and the kids, to my family and loved ones. Burn a candle if you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Saba. Please welcome our next reader, Chedang Gorantla.
My poem title is Whispering Winds. There's a grassy hill in the distance. The water is laying down, motionless. The sky is like a statue. The winds are whispering. Can't you feel it? Whispering winds, whispering winds. The soft touch against your skin. The mosquito in your ear. Two boats making a shh. Imitating the nature. Whispering winds, whispering winds. The population as hollow as tin. It's peaceful right now, can't you sense it? Whispering winds, whispering winds.
Thank you, Chandra. Our next reader is Elizabeth Commonday Swim.
Thank you for listening in advance, and thank you, Mary, and thanks to Chuck Wemple as well. I'm going to read my response to Sean Leonardo's The Eulogy, which is on the far back wall of this room, so beyond all the exhibition dividers. And Sean Leonardo brings some of Ralph Ellison's words to life from The Invisible Man, which was published 64 years ago. Men in white suits, many blowing brass, one typing tempo on a snare, march the New York City High Line, friends thereof in tow. They have crossed the bridge from Williamsburg and Dumbo down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass. Ralph Ellison's words echo under buttresses of reclaimed metal, over planked promenades. It's a call and response across generations that includes even me, a privileged bystander, more than a year late and watching from another state. Todd Clifton of The Invisible Man lends his place in the lament to a litany of human souls martyred by the privileged imagination. It's a seconds line for a perpetual parade of humanity, not only for the deceased, but for unknown people who will someday be dead, maybe even tomorrow. I have lost someone to an otherwise bored bigot, but his passing was well publicized and widely mourned. The bulk of my grief had a start, a middle, and an end. How do you grieve a slow-tempo genocide that seems illimitable and which so many people, neighbors even, will not acknowledge? Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was beautiful. Please welcome our next reader, Dom Zukoning.
Okay. Yeah, good. For many years, I have been allowed to teach, which is a blessing, for at least for me. And I spent time teaching in an alternative program. The interesting thing about it is you're surrounded by people who were looking to go to prison like people in other schools were going to college. And I began to forget things. And so I was very grateful to come here and remember. In my father's house, there are many mansions. Everyone in my classroom knows someone in prison. At first, I was surprised. Then I remembered I've known someone in prison as long as I can remember. People I'd met at weddings, funeral homes, a couple of cousins who worked for the mob, the two Bobbies from first grade, Cece, a friend from Chalmers Avenue, Murph, the guy who sold. People selected crimes, drug dealers, draft resistors, thieves, AOL from the Marines. They did the time-crime equation and lost. Simple to the college mind. I was just lucky. They were unlucky. Like getting laid by someone in a bar. Some of us get away, or find an attorney who makes the magic motions to make our manila folder disappear. We have a place to walk away to and start as if someone knew. Thursday afternoon, I was stopping a fight at the alternative school, trying not to have the big dog jack up the kids. An older brother, C, was getting yellow-eyed crunked to step up for a little P, his brother. Swollen arms and a conditioned fight response the boys took home from a gym in a correctional facility called Seabrook. High school lasted until a formality of a reason to be placed at the alternative in lieu. I knew their mother, gang colors, set, clique, and English grades. C could write with clear sense and read. He didn't sleep or relax in my class, a respect he gave. We seemed to enjoy the safe afternoons in the classroom. He misspelled his essays, no worse than most, yet demanded Shakespeare, what he imagined a real school should read. Too well. Our staging of Julius Caesar nearly came purpled. C understood the odds foretelling Caesar's doom. Little P balanced equations. Sometimes he solved for truancy. One Sunday, Little P sold tinfoil wax as drugs for $20. Then, pursued by panic and a crack addict who fell under the car, assault with a deadly weapon in the commission of a robbery, possession of crack cocaine with intent. The DA petitioned a 14-year-old Little P into an adult, and his PD bargained him out of 30 years of life. His freshman year, 4,000 days to be tattooed with a G. I sent a letter. It returned. He'd been segregated at Jester before the next transfer. Won't say where. Bureaucracy gave easy excuses to let him reform. Slowly he became a silent shape that twisted my gaze from meeting his mother's and hers from meeting mine, as if we were both agreeing not to see a peripheral ghost barely invisible on her couch. 30 years floating prison to prison as a third-degree felon, pencil whipped by TDC, one more specter in white denim. I met C one July afternoon, riding his bicycle home from hotel dishwashing. We didn't mention Little P. I promised Mom, he sighed and spat. I'm just trying to make straight money. $135 for 6 days' work. Shit. 10-hour shifts in rubber gloves. There was the inevitable arrest waiting. He had already surrendered his clique at 28th Crooked Split. It wasn't enough. I knew some police. They knew his family. All convicts or will be. One afternoon, C abbreviated my assignment on irony. Not the time, how you stand up to it. Show how Caesar's character is revealed as he understands his fate is in the hands of a conspiracy of murderers.
Thank you, Dom. Our next reader is Vanessa Zimmer Powell.
Hello, thanks, Mary and Chuck. This was a very powerful exhibit. When I got home, I was just overwhelmed with grief and anger, and I had a hard time finding what I was going to write. I felt like all the images were so powerful already. But one image kept resonating with me, and it was Ashley Hunt did a series of photographs of different jails, and there was this one jail that was a hill, and you couldn't see it, and it was in Marin County, just north of San Francisco, and I felt like the best way to express myself through this work was in the eyes of a child. So this is called Visiting the Big Hill, Part 1. The swing is my airplane. I fly over Children's Island and yell, I love you, Lagoon Park. Later, I quack at ducks, throw crackers to my seagull friends, and chase them into the water. I run, spin in circles, do cartwheels, get real dizzy. Then Mommy shouts, Mijita, Ben, let's go see Papi on the other side of the hill. Part 2. I get that happy and sick feeling like when you eat too much ice cream. I want to see Papi so bad, but my stomach gets all weird when I see him under the big hill, living like the ants in our ant farm at school. Mommy says this is a hidden jail. People at the park don't have to see, don't have to think about things. I stare at Papi through the glass, just like I do with the ants. He is an insect who I cannot touch. Part 3. Our small apartment by the canal. Abuelita gives me candy. Mommy cries. I am silent. I miss the seagulls and the ducks. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Our next reader is Laura Pena.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Chuck and Mary, for this wonderful program. My poem is called Visiting Day. Jasmine and Eric look at the camera as they stand in front of a cinder block mural meant to be soothing, with its blue water backsplash, potted plant, lighthouse, and smiling sun. Eric holds his baby girl dressed in "I love you, Daddy," pink emblazoned lettering, baby sweatpants, and shirt, while Jasmine wears a Family First t-shirt that depicts a picture of them from a previous visiting day of the same mural, as if to say, "We haven't forgotten you, Eric." Although I wonder, does she wear this shirt when it's not visiting day, when it's the weekly grocery store run day? Through 46 photographs, Jasmine changes hairstyles, clothes. Even her face is fuller in some of the photos and thinner in others, as the little girl grows from baby to toddler in Eric's arms, while his face and pants remain the same. The only difference being the color of his work shirt. Life inside for Eric has become static. Life outside for Jasmine and the baby girl has moved forward. In one of the last photographs, Eric sits on a low chair, and the little girl stands in front of him, too big to carry anymore. Thank you.
Across the country, having a good old time. Her name used to be Jacoby Wayne. It's changed to J.C. Wayne. So everyone give it up. J.C. Wayne.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to Mary and Chuck. Thank you to Michael for making the sound and my presence here possible. And thanks to Cam and all of you. This poem has a lot of references to all of the material that surrounds us in this incredible exhibit. It also was written right after the Judiciary Committee hearings of Kavanaugh and Ford. So there is reference to all of the unfolding of that as well. They seemed quite related in this theme of justice. White space, negative space, erasure, unsaid. Unraveled, freedom. Rewound, unbound. Cut out, as the tongue sliced into silence or rest. Absenced into presence. Confession, abstention. Conscience leaves the chamber. In privilege, you get to cry and turn red over your spilt beer and the sailing of your ship into a mist that goes by the name of Lazarus, Emma, who will rise again in 4 days, the number of humanity. In courage, you get to be scorned and laughed at, and having to play pretty to voice at all, while shuffling off the gangplank, and this when you're white and privileged too. The banners are in tatters at Standing Rock. Couldn't we see the petroglyphs on the wall, and the exaggerated lips coming back out to be smeared on Serena, all the way from a place that got its start as a penal colony. But the walls cannot stand. They are gauzy and mist when we are not only of body, or the inflamed emotions, or even the mind, one of the greatest prisons of them all. Freedom can't be bound when the soul of a life, of a nation, of a people, of humanity is aflame. And they have tossed them out. Yet again, as they sail off the edge of the world in the gasoline sea of beer keg that will turn into floodlight bombs, sweeping away the darkness of the psyche into the celebration of the richness of the sin within. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacoby. Or JC. Gosh, I gotta get it
That's
right.
okay. Jacoby is fine. JC's just shorter.
Okay, thank you. Please welcome our next reader, Laura Neuendorp.
Can you hear me? Thanks. I think I should explain this a little bit. This exhibit, I did not think I could write anything because so much of it is so shocking. But then when I looked at different things, I found one of Glenn Ligon's runaway pictures. And the woman running away, the slave, is disguised as a woman. And I started thinking about the fact that there was one part of my family history that had kind of been shushed. And so the part of this about my great-grandmother's mother is true. We had one intrepid family member who followed it genealogically, going to New Orleans, Germany, and everywhere. So I know that it's true, and I know that I have romanticized it because it's such a hard thing to deal with. If you come from a family where there's not a lot of happiness, but there's one or two or three beautiful stories and about these people and about this great-grandmother and where she came from, that was a sense of beauty outside of New Orleans. Insofar as this exhibit, I mentioned Ligon's Runaway. The language in here about the Timex watch is his. I was surprised by that. But some of the other things, the title of this were three things that were scratched on the wall, which is back there. So I just took the phrases, and there's a quote down at the bottom about a woman who wouldn't erase her young, comes from a statement which is really very judgmental. It's about somebody saying that these people would erase their young. So this is my version of my great-grandmother's mother. She was black and the cotton was white, a contrast so deliberate it was ink print, but illegible on a 19th century page of family history, turned sideways because some said she was a lie, some said truth, a story buried in a field outside New Orleans where slaves picked cotton, some leased, maybe some conscripted, some runaways, and if caught, liable to be convicted like Glenn Ligon, who must have got some money somehow or been an artist showing at the cam, shackled by a really cool big old silver Timex on a silver band, way ahead of his time, talking out the side of his mouth, describes 6 different ways like my great-grandmother's mother, not bought in town, bidding prices high when it was time to plant, to sow, and time to reap when white-top cotton crops filled the fields like snow. One shade of white like winter, another fallen clouds, dirty white with rain, or the moon, already shrinking backward from full, the crop threatened by storm, mold, and differences of opinion, prejudice likened to the open-mouthed insect hunger of boll weevils. To the man on the horse who owned her, nobody's innocent, it's karma, judgment is not truth. She must have looked as solid and ethereal as the earth on his plantation, ready to sow with future generations a woman who wouldn't erase their young with the denial of resources. His earth chased by phantoms of moonlight that turned out to be her wedding veil.
Thank you, Lori. Next up is Alina Petrova.
Good evening. My poem is inspired by Sean Leonardo's performance, The Eulogy, and it has a couple of references, one to satirical video about human zoo, and another, it just happened the day I was listening to Mahler's Resurrection Symphony, and it found its place in the poem. White heat. Rise again, yeah, thou will rise again, my dust, after a short rest. Ghost. It's always a broken tail light, a tattered t-shirt, my hand reaching into my pocket. That's the ground, a chokehold, a knee on my crown. Baby, I can't call you. I can't breathe. Beep your breath. 11 times, like that other Eric policeman. It's always a mistake. Who knew that the 12-year-old was playing with a toy gun? He looked like he meant business. Who knew that the loon with a hole on the heel of his sock and a Lucy in his pocket had 6 children for whom he saved on his t-shirts? Who knew in the white heat of downtown that I meant to pull a taser when I pulled my .38 caliber? This tale would have not worked with jurors in Chicago for a fellow cop who put 16 bullets into the teen's back and then dropped by a hop. For it was a long day, crispy chicken with green beans, mashed potatoes on the side. But I'm lucky. A few months of poker with prison guards, and here I am, back on parole with a tap in the same bar, a good old boy still liked by folks. MC. Of the rehearsal of a brass band funeral jazz, with occasional intrusions of Mahler's Resurrection Symphony. It's always he received true freedom or pain, thou piercer of all things, from thee have I rested. It's always forget it. It's getting late, redundant, the story is concise and doesn't give you the good right feeling like those 16 bullets that traveled between the teen's heart and pelvis and skinny diesel jeans that carried no gun. His name was insert in the box. The box is getting crowded. A saxophone howl lowers its pitch and falls. Finish your Rita on the rocks and drive home safely. Turn on the news and water. It will be more of the same news tomorrow and plenty of laughs on TCM, actors with decent looks in felt hats. Though some characters appear too Amazonian or as dark as your suspects, they pick up with civilization quickly and, like in the old-time human zoo, lift weights and dance for Chiquita bananas shoved through grills. Grab a Coke with saltines. This gives you a soothing feeling that you are still on the safe side and nothing is lost with thee. In the white heat, safety first. Thine is what thou hast fought for. Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. Next up is Patty Nomensen.
Thank you, Mary, and the museum, and Words and Art for this evening and this opportunity. As for my poem, Crime and Punishment is not a particularly original title. I think it has more to do with my having recently retired as an English literature teacher, so some sort of vestigial thing was happening. Some of the language I use in the poem is not my own. It was provided here in Walls Turned Sideways. It was that sense of being at the wrong place at the wrong time, wearing the wrong clothes, having the wrong skin color, making a single misjudgment that would shift the tectonic plates of their lives. I was also stunned to realize how much surveillance was a form of punishment. That had never occurred to me. I was also moved by the human need to change one's narrative in order to survive inside or outside the prison walls. I can clearly see the violence that simmers in a prisoner, but I'm also saddened by so many of these inmates, in particular the one behind me that was thrown off course, who had been a valedictorian. The word ruined kept coming to mind. And I was interested in learning about all the books that he read in prison before he was executed. So I opened my poem with a quote from Camus. And if you're reading along, the titles of the books are appropriately italicized. Crime and Punishment is not among them. "O young woman, throw yourself into the water again so that I may a second time have the chance of saving both of us from the fall." It didn't go over well because of who I am. Furtive, inclined to bolt when chased, anxious, vigilant. And then there were wardrobe considerations. A black teen in Oakland sits studying his knees and confesses that when he sees a cop, he feels sick. My 3 walls are gouged with messages so deep they look like tattoos bleeding through fresh paint. The 4th wall is space divided by bars that allow in light and a view out and a view in to me. They let us out to farm to make this prison sustainable, to build a golf course so employees will stay over on weekends, including those helmeted guards who watch us from horseback with a rifle on their taut thigh, pointed at the sky as we many thin men wield our hoes and spades. They watch me with my knife and fork as I cut the steak I ordered for my last meal. They are a well-armed audience, but they can't know what I imagined was possible with a hoe. I would like to think it was just a mistake. The titles of the books they will find and store in a box after today is over and I am gone will explain that poverty and hunger and need require a fulcrum, a delicate balance. Most valedictorians can handle the speed required for success, a necessary high that can be eventually abandoned by some and not by others. Just kids. Maybe I could have saved both of us, you from murder and me from complicity. The water is cold, the fall. The view from the gallows makes it necessary to adjust the narrative. I could have been a contender. This is not goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Next up is Winston Durden.
This is a 4th level ekphrasis. It doesn't reference necessarily any of the particular works of art in the exhibit, but it works on the theme of these arts. It's kind of nestled with me for some time that people are executed for murder, but it's the state who murders them, and so I didn't really know how to sort all that out. I found a book called Death Work by a guy named Robert Johnson. It's a lot of interviews with both prisoners and people on the execution squad. And it left me, it left me with some questions which are still in the poem, and it left me to kind of come to my own conclusion. This is called Dead Man Walking. The lips of severed heads still move. The bodies twitch and quiver. Hanged men die with an erection. It burns, whispers a lethal injection victim. Hard not to know what's coming, yet the condemned walk to their executions. Why consent? Why not resist, refuse cooperation, demand to be carried or strapped on a gurney, particularly those who claim to be innocent? In their calm, a resignation, peace with death, or acquiescence to fear, the inevitable, and oblivion. What calm steadies the killer's hands, who swing the blade, drop the trap, squeeze the trigger, turn the tap on lethal cocktails? Is cooperation tacit permission, or the dead's perpetual weight of forgiveness? Dare to look in dead eyes. Hoods are for the hangman, blindfolds for the firing squad, not the bullet's object.
Thank you, Winston. Next up is Randall Nolte.
Thank you, Mary. When I learned that this round's Words and Art project was going to be about prisons, my first thought was, I've never been to prison, either as a resident or even as a visitor. And how would I relate to this? Well, I came to the exhibit, and there's so much here. And even after that, since I was kind of sensitized to the whole prison and judicial system theme, I began to notice it in different parts of my life. In fact, I remembered that I knew people had been to prison, and I even know people who are in prison. And during this recent time, I learned that I have a friend who has a good chance of going to prison. But anyway, I started thinking about how can I relate. And one idea was, I remember growing up, I heard songs about prison. And so I thought, maybe I'll try that. So what kind of song would it have to be? It seems to me at first like it would have to be blues. So I have attempted to write lyrics for a blues song. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing, but you may have a little music playing in the background as I read. And then further beyond that, I was thinking about how can we really all relate? And it seemed to me that all of us have certain thought patterns or prejudices or habits or cultural background that we all bring with us. And so we, in a way, we all have a certain confinement to our lives. Walls unit. Mama, dear mama, I haven't sent you much in the past. Sorry, dear mama, I've barely written in the past. Now you'll get a letter. I reckon it'll be my last. Daddy always told me I'd never amount to much. Daddy always told me, son, you won't amount to much. How to get along? Well, I guess I never had the touch. I always had a temper. You said it would do me in. Always quick to anger. You said it would do me in. Pride and wrath and envy, I had every kind of sin. Why'd they come for me? No, couldn't they let me be? Why would they want me? Couldn't they let me be? I don't understand, no, never for the life of me. Judge told the jury, decide beyond a doubt. Judge told the jury, you gotta know beyond a doubt. But when they looked me over, I knew there was no way out. Biscuits and gravy, Daddy said they were the best. Biscuits and gravy, Daddy always liked them best. Biscuits and gravy is gonna be my last request. I've beaten bars and shackles and walls of every kind, cuffs and ropes and leg irons and walls of every kind. But I never could escape from the walls inside my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Randall. Next up is John Milkerite.
Hello, everyone. My poem is specifically focused on the video by Rodrigo Valenzuela. It's a video against that wall where you see a black and white image. Like the other poems, I have the theme of walls. That's in the title of the whole exhibit. And the title of his piece is called Diamond Box. In this case, diamond box refers to not a jewelry box on a dresser, but a diamond box like on a construction vehicle. And the theme is actually immigration, one of our charged topics. Wholeness. To know how to feel wholeness, open a diamond box. Fit yourself inside for the future like a tool ready for the first work. What you carry and relied upon, the food, the bags of shoes, the gallons of water, is never enough. Although all this counts towards the deception of a journey in the land of wholeness. How night cloaks your walk and readies itself like a hotel, a bed vacancy made of stones and branches, no walls, not quite so dark under the pledge of moonshine. To know the full impact of wholeness, start over again after one failed attempt. You must certify this plan is idiotic and reckless, which may include a split from the pack after the police invade. You must see bones and crosses in the desert. You need to ready yourself when your toenails pop off after the removal of your socks. You know you've arrived when wholeness presses your hand against these walls turned sideways, which now feels more like bridges. Your hand never wants to let go.
Thanks, John. Next up is Trinidad Hanks.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm a teacher, so I expect you to say it back. Before I begin reading, it's supposed to be a concrete poem. It's supposed to look like a jail cell. Retired English teacher. I'm not going to give any background about myself. I want to give some background about our justice system. Blacks, I taught at the prison for 1 year. And I had 60 students at a time, 30 in 2 different classes. And if justice were just, it would have reflected the demographics. So out of the 60 students, I should have had 7 blacks. I had 29. That was 48% of my inmate population. The Hispanic students, Hispanics are 38% of the population. I should have had 23 Hispanic students. I had 28. Asians are 1%, between 0 and 1%, based on the data I had. And I had 1 Asian student, so that was fair. Whites represent 45% of the population. I should have had 27 white men in my classrooms. I had 2. Again, I had 29 black men. And so that's what my poem is about, racial profiling, because, you know, people think that, well, they ought to do this, they shouldn't have done that. When, if you look in some research from the U.S. Department of Justice, you'll see that when cops or any type of law enforcement, when they have a choice, when they see the person first, then there's a disproportionate number of black and browns in prison, blacks the most, okay? And my poem is called Busted Justice. Boxed in, locked out, but like Motel 6, they leave the lights on for us. Open door policy, rooms reserved for guests with tents of dirt. Monkey cousins caged in cages, sweet sweets with 3 hots and a cot bought by slave labor. Food is to die for. Ice cold sweet tea, country fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, fluffy buttermilk biscuits, and flaky American pie. No Tupperware needed, since this is the Last Supper. It is finished. They kill us with kindness, then leave the lights on for ghosts. We are gone, humanity chased out by hate. Shipped out, locked in lodgings with finally appointed barbed wire frills at the holiday end. Unwelcome guests are welcome to seek judicial thrills which flee faster than Jesse Owens' feet. Olympians, we're trained to claw at crack, planted like petunias in our community. Opposite of opioid addicts, our sickness is not sick, it's criminal. Guards at the gate buzz blacks in at the big house, where slaves salute made in China American flags unraveling like rope. Porch monkeys come in, doors slam shut on freedom at the prison industrial complex. Peeping Tom paradise, privacy is a wet dream where 16-year-old cellies bend or get beaten. Fresh red meat traded like ramen noodles, grief relief. Monkey business, the hot heat of hell's seat. State-of-the-art chairs, designer electric recliners, custom made for us. Pretty plaid in black and brown stripes of Naugahyde Negro. To receive us, they leave the lights on. We are welcome welcome, welcome, as Baptists in church like Dylan and disciples. His chilling, killing eyes look like dimmed lights forgotten in the dark. The marked dark ones don't get burgers as double cheese murders whet appetites, gifts for kings whose throne, sweet throne, has the lights turned on, waiting for us, covered in ketchup-colored blood. Cut glass chandeliers hang sideways like suicides or slain inmates. Sandra Bland, it doesn't matter. Warning, warning, warning signs of upside down backwoods justice, outhouse of evil, which leaves the brights running for us. Slave graves, like Lucifer, Aryan angels of light shine while we work overtime, spit shining prayers to cancel reservations and lap dances in chairs. For once, our credit card goes through smooth as a knife. On bright, shiny days, they dispense just us justice and leave the lights on at Motel 666.
Thank you, Trinidad. And our last reader is Mark Joden.
Thank you, Mary. Concertina. Concertina razor wire is more beautiful appearance and better protection than other razor mesh. Advertisement from razor wire manufacturer. Strand 1. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, more beautiful than galvanized, spiraled razor wire, especially when the wind blows and the expandable steel coils accordion in and out and in and out in bright sunlight. Strand 2. Blessed are the hands that clip the strands together, for their fingertips are covered with blood and bandages they can barely afford. Modern-day prisoners to minimum wage, with each 197-foot stretch of strands selling for $34.99 in big box stores based in Arkansas. Strand 3. Do we ever really know what side of the wire we are standing on? Or who was the judge and why we were sentenced? And whether our imprisonment was self-imposed? Some people see prison gray walls everywhere they look, distracted from the liberating truth that there is always more freedom on the inside. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everyone. Let's give another hand of applause for all the work, all the featured readers. This was wonderful. Thanks again to Felice Cleveland and to Michael Simmons here at the CAM. I have a sign-in sheet. If you'd like to be on my email list, just come up and sign it. Thanks, everyone, for being here. This was a great evening. Go off into the world and spread more poetry.